Sahana vavatu, Sahano bhunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahe, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So chapter 6, Dhyana Yoga of Bhagavad Gita, the topic of meditation. So when it comes to the word meditation, popular word, we have some ideas what meditation is and what meditation isn't. And we usually think of meditation, right, as thoughtlessness, as technique, or going to some state, which is fine. This is also part of meditation. But according to chapter 6 of the Gita, meditation is not isolated to thoughtlessness. In fact, there's no question of thoughtlessness in Advaita Vedanta meditation. Rather, most of the chapter actually focuses on preparing yourself for meditation, because we often say, do you meditate? No. Why not? Well, I don't know how to. But the how to is never a problem. If you want to meditate, you will gladly meditate. The underlying cause for lack of meditation is the mind is resisting it. It cannot bear just sitting down and going through a process. It needs to move, it needs to think, it needs to constantly get engaged with objects. So Krishna here will talk about what does it take to have a mind that's compatible for meditation. Never mind the techniques. You can Google right now meditation techniques, you'll find hundreds of them. But are you going to apply them? That depends on the kind of mind that you have. Thereby, in verse 1, let's see how Krishna starts to point out what a meditator is. Verse 1, chapter 6. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Anashritav Karma Palam Karyam Karma Karotiyaha Sasanyasi Cha Yogi Cha Naniragnir Nacha Kriyaha. Whole line 1. Anashritaha Karma Palam Karyam Karma Karotiyaha. So the person who is a yogi. So here, the word yogi is a qualified meditator, but they're also calling a yogi a true sannyasi. Not just a sannyasi, but it's qualified by the word true, like a real sannyasi. So the true sannyasi and yogi are the ones who are qualified for meditation. Now you say, well, what are the qualities of a yogi? I want to know, because if we do know, we can learn from this yogi who is a qualified, has a qualified mind for meditation. And it says, he or she is one who does what is to be done and not having an end in view. So you can interpret this, not having an end in view. You can say this means the yogi does what is to be done without having any expectations of results. And you say, how is this possible? This is totally contradicting my experience. Is it possible not to have any expectations? Truly, is it possible? Well, you're here because you got no expectations. You're here because you got expectations. I've also got expectations. This is the nature of human beings. We have to have certain standards, otherwise you end up being thrown by the winds left and right. Therefore, you have to put a new word here to make the statement make sense. And what is that word? Specific results. In other words, this is the one who does not have an end for having specific results happening. In other words, we have a certain expectation how things absolutely must happen. And if it doesn't go away, we get a little bit ruffled. We get disturbed by that. And thereby we have to ask ourselves, why does it have to happen my way? The world is not made to suit my fancies. This is not how the world works. It's not made to make you happy only. It's just here to accommodate the needs of all of us. How many of us? Well, right now, 8 billion. And thereby, it's not realistic to expect specific results every single time from something to come into our lives. What kind of specific results? Well, there are 4 kinds of results that you and I can receive. It doesn't matter what position you're in, what hierarchy in the society you are, there are 4 possibilities. And the first one is, ideally, you and I can get exactly what we want. This would be wonderful. We all walk away cheerful, happy, we're all transformed. It's wonderful. But reality gives you 3 more options. Reality says it could be totally opposite than you had in mind. It could be such that you just didn't connect. You don't know why, but you didn't connect to one or the other text. Maybe you connected to Kena Upanishad, maybe to the Gita, or maybe to the Gita, or Kena not. We just don't know. But either way, this is the reality. Therefore, one needs to accept it could be opposite. Why does it have to happen your way? Who said it has to happen your way? It's not realistic to think like this because we've got 2 more options coming up. Things can happen much better than we expected. This is wonderful. We all want this. Maybe we don't. Maybe we just want what we want. We don't want more. I once remember seeing a sadhu in India, and he was asking for money. And this fella came up to him and he offered him like 10,000 rupees, whatever. It's like $1,000 or more. And he says, no, I don't need this. I only need, 50 rupees. He gave back the money. He doesn't want more. He just wants what he's asking. Give me $50 or give me $5. That's enough. I don't need $1,000. What am I going to use it for? Takes courage to do that. The sadhu knows what he wants. So it doesn't mean just because you get more, because if you get more, it can actually go the other way. You say, oh, what do I do with this money now? Therefore, the last one is you get less than you expected. You could be asking for knowledge to take place and to understand this. You could be learning a language or doing something important for you that you value. And it's just not kind of going that well for you. It's going, but it's not going that well. This is also a possibility. So we need to accept these 4 possibilities in life. It is just how it is. And it's not different for anyone. So whoever we see and see, oh, they're getting it all. They're so lucky. If you look at their life closely, you will see what their life is really about. In other words, everyone has a fair share of ups and downs. And this is because 4 possibilities are offered. And the question then is, how do you deal with these 4 possibilities? Well, first of all, we need to bring the understanding that it's not an unfair system. You're not being punished if something doesn't go your way. Because again, the world is not made to suit your fancies. It's just not real. It's not realistic to think like this. Sometimes you're just not going to get it. Somebody else will get the job. Sometimes you will get the job. One time I was returning from an airport, and I was living in a small town called Byron Bay in Australia, and the taxi man or van emptied out everyone, right? We were all coming back from the airport, and he was going around Byron Bay emptying out all of the tourists, and I live literally 5 minutes away from the main street. And I was just, oh my God, this is taking 1 hour to empty out everyone in the van, and my house is just 5 minutes away. And I thought, I really wanted my way right now. I wanted my way, but I didn't get it my way. And he said, he noticed my frustration. He said when he emptied me out, oh, Andre, sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some. Such a simple statement, but it just struck a chord with me. It's so true. And so I took that closely, and that is the fact. Sometimes we just have it coming our way, and it's wonderful. But sometimes it's not personal. The law is not here to punish you. The order is not here punishing you. Because sometimes we think, oh, it's my karma, I'm being punished, nothing's going well. It's not like that. That's just the position you're in. Now I have to deal with it. I have to make the best of it. It's not like Ishvara says, I'm going to strike a chord and I'm going to punish you for your evil deeds. The system is such that for every cause, there has to be an effect. And you're experiencing an effect that is unpleasant. You may not know what the cause is, but the cause is there. That's how the law is set up. And this means whenever you receive an effect, you have to intelligently navigate that effect. How to intelligently navigate it? It is coming from the whole network of causes. I may not understand where they come from, why they come, but I understand one thing. They come from an infallible order. Infallible order means it never makes a mistake. It never accidentally delivers you something that you don't deserve. It shows you something which is connected to some past event. Knowing it's connected to my past event, I have to make the best out of it. And what do I have? I have my attitude. I can learn from it and I can kind of bring the order back and remember it's not personal. And I have a chance to refine my responses. Now that that anger is boiling up, it just wants to boil up. In that moment, perfect chance to refine your responses. In other words, every challenge becomes a chance to change how you respond. Rather than kind of thinking about it, what's the best way to live? The best chance to transform is when that boiling anger starts to arise, that frustration or that disappointment. That is your golden opportunity. And in that moment, the knowledge is brought in. Mostly in that moment. Because in that moment, the knowledge wants to escape. So there needs to be some effort to deliberately bring that knowledge in and say, hey, this is not personal. I'm not being punished or rewarded. This is just an event, and I have to work it out to the best of my ability. Okay? Therefore, aligning yourself to these laws. What kind of laws? Psychological laws. What does this do? Well, psychology is called having a good mind management. And what are these laws? They're expressions of Ishvara. In fact, it is Ishvara manifesting as these laws. So this means it is in it for you to discover what these laws are, such as physiology, having a strong body, having a strong posture, having a relatively managed mind, to discover them and to align yourself to them. Are you doing this for somebody else? No, you're doing this for you because you know that if there is a poor psychology, if your mind's all racy, then that's unpleasant and you cannot get away from that. Why is it like this? Because I'm not taking advantage of the laws. Therefore, the yogi comes in contact with the laws and then says, how can I use these laws to my advantage? Because you got no choice. The laws don't say, oh, you're not practicing memory. It's okay, I'll give you a good memory anyway. You need to practice to get a good memory. That's called living intelligently. What do I value? Well, suppose it's memory. Suppose it's communication skills. Then the laws are provided there. Okay, I will give you that. You just have to exercise that and I will flourish. I will flourish your communication skills. So this means you need to collapse the potential that are given to you through effort. It's not just prayer, but following up the prayer with effort. That's the only way that the laws can reward you with what they are meant to give you. Therefore, this yogi also understands that these laws that I speak of, they're not just some dumb laws, psychology, physiology. If you think about it, they're connected. There's a mind-body connection. Your body temperature responds to the environment. So the environment affects your body temperature. You take water and that immediately nourishes the body. So in this way, the laws are connected. And because they're connected, I understand that if I'm out of alignment with one law, it affects all of the other laws. And this is how traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, works. They say, you got poor eyesight? In the Western medicine, what do? We'll give you carrots. In traditional Chinese medicine, your liver. Let me look at your liver. Your liver is associated to your eyesight. So what does this liver cleansing solution have to do with my eyes? Everything. So in other words, they understand the connection between the laws and the body, and they're giving you, and they're targeting the cause rather than the effect. This is called intelligent living. And these laws, furthermore, connect both sentient and insentient matter. It's not like they're just operating on you. They're moving our weather patterns. They're moving our seasons for billions of years. They're activating our volcanoes. They're purifying, they're evaporating ocean water and supplying clean water to the animals. This is not just dumb mechanical laws, random. There's a connection between them, meaning there is an intelligence between them. And so what is intelligent living? How does a yogi live intelligently? Firstly, acknowledging these laws are not just some mechanical, but they are laws of Ishvara. And they've been operating for time immemorial. And me, being born amidst these laws, I have no choice but to align myself with them. For whose benefit? Am I doing it to show off how I'm in the tune? No, it's always for your sake. Because you're not the creator of the laws. You're not the creator of your body. So you have no choice. In a sense, you're choiceless about it. Furthermore, this yogi brings two more laws in. That is the law of dharma. What is law of dharma? Well, we're all born with an innate program that lets us know what is right and wrong, what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. We all know this. Every baby knows, if he could speak, I don't want to be hurt and I don't want others to hurt me. And the baby next door says the same thing. I don't want to be hurt and I don't want to hurt others. But then we also have our personal values. These are inculcated values. We get born with these dharmic values. But then we have our personal values, which we develop slowly through the course of time. And they are like, well, I need money. And there's a quick way to make money. There's a way to kind of step on somebody's toes. Nobody's going to find out. I'll do that. But the law of compensation doesn't forgive you. It doesn't exempt you from finding a reason to go against the law. It finds a compensation. It finds a way to deliver the corresponding result. So even if you kind of interpret dharma, maybe dharma is what I'm doing now is okay. The laws don't exempt you from that. They will still give you a corresponding result. So even if you tell yourself a story, I'm doing this because I need and I cannot do it any other way, the laws don't say, it's okay, I understand you, my child, I'll let you go. The laws are impersonal. They're just meant to deliver a corresponding result to what you do with your own free will. And therefore you're given the guidance system, which is called the law of dharma, on how to make the right decisions. For whose sake? For your sake, because the whole world is made to help you evolve. Now, if I choose to go against the laws, then what happens? Well, a second system kicks in, which is called law of karma. Law of karma, in simple English, means the compensation system. In other words, I have to work through whatever was done in the past. There is no way around it. Whatever you learned in the past is what you will enjoy in the future. Whatever you've done in the past is the kind of life you're having now. Whatever you've done on a consistent basis, whatever prayers, whatever meditations, whatever introspections, whatever you have looked into your life, you're enjoying that life right now. And sometimes there's a delay. We work years and years and years looking into yourself, looking into your patterns, undoing your distortions. And you say, my God, I'm still the same person. I'm still got old habits. I'm still kind of judgmental. I'm still have a racy mind, I'm still finding faults in people, and yet I'm working on myself. This is because there's a delay factor. That's how it is. The delay factor means the results sometimes come years later. Therefore, understanding these laws, I can now live intelligently by having patience. Because if I don't have patience, unintelligent living, then I say, this is not working, I'm just going to go and have it my way. Either way, the laws will still give you corresponding results. One time in the webinar, I said, based on what I've observed, this will be different for you. On average, significant changes in my life come every 10 years. Studying, working hard, really, really smart and hard simultaneously, and significant changes, like transformable changes, like palpable, tangible, only feel that 10 years later. So can you be patient that long? See, this is the question. That's called intelligent living. Having so much trust in the system that you know no action goes wasted in this universe. Every action counts, no matter how small. A prayer is an action. So it may initially seem like it has no effect, but it is an action. And the way that the law of compensation, law of karma is made, is that for every action, there must be a result. Therefore, what kind of results do I want to receive in my future? Well, if they are results of transformation, of clarity, of seeing the depth, seeing the nuances, then I have to ask myself the question, how am I living right now? Is it conducive with the future version of myself? What do I have to do now so that the future I will enjoy results that are positive, that are keeping with the laws, that are looking at the depth of things, that are bringing me joy, that is bringing me reverentiality, that is helping me see the presence of Ishvara in all people, even in those tough times, in the trees, in the weather. Therefore, it is effort. The yogi went through effort. So when we look at a yogi, we say, wow, what an advanced individual. Only because we don't see the background that took place for that individual to be who they are. So this yogi actively realigns their actions, bringing them back to the order. Actively, not one time. Who says this? You know what? I practiced ahimsa yesterday. Leave me alone now. I practiced it yesterday. I practiced non-injury yesterday. I was kind yesterday. I've done my job. Is it like that? No. Yesterday was just the start of a long journey, on a long chain of actively coming back to the laws, realigning. Every time there's a fall, person gets up. What have I done that was inappropriate? How can it be done better next time? What have I learned about myself? How is this keeping with the truth? Is this coming from my own bubbles? How much was this addressing the environment? How much of me was selfish? How much of me was considering the other's well-being? Every fall, every opportunity gives you a chance to come back up and realign yourself even firmer with the laws of Ishvara. Again, for whose sake? For your sake. Because you didn't create your body, you didn't create this world, you didn't create the laws. Therefore, the laws are made in such a way they run the universe. And by me aligning with that which runs the universe, who's going to run? The one who aligns with the laws that run the universe in perfect harmony. So the cost of going against the flow of the laws is that I don't run anymore. My mind doesn't run, my body doesn't run, and therefore the truth cannot be captured because it transfers, it converts into a racy mind, a disturbed mind, a gross mind, a very physical mind. Then it asks the question, who is a ordinary sannyasi? So we talked about a true sannyasi, a yogi. Who's an ordinary sannyasi? Well, an ordinary sannyasi has given up all rituals, has given up prayers, has given up relationships, has given up obligations, and is only specifically wanting self-knowledge. In other words, this is a kind of a usual sannyasi that we know of traditionally, right? Wearing an ochre robe and pursuing exclusively self-knowledge. But then we had Arjuna. He wanted to be this kind of sannyasi. He wanted to go to the Himalaya in chapter 2. And Krishna says, this is possible, Arjun. However, you have to consider you're carrying your dissatisfied self with you. You will be peaceful in the Himalaya, but you will also be there taking yourself along with it. So it's not an easy path at all, because you got no one to communicate with, you got no emotional company, and there's no one to feed back to trigger you. Therefore, all of your unresolved stuff can remain under the carpet, giving you the impression like everything's okay. And how does this unresolved stuff convert to that sannyasi in the Himalaya? With a racy mind. He's or she's trying to study and learn, and yet the thoughts of, have I made the right decision? Should I go back to the usual life of being an ordinary person? All of this continues to run in the mind. So what Krishna says is, there's a different way. This will come in the next verse. And that way is to remain in the world, continue the relationships, because they will help you sharpen up your mind. And a sharp mind is what you need for the knowledge to take place firmly. And he confirms this in the next verse by stating 2 paths to liberation. In fact, the only 2 paths to liberation. Yam sannyasam iti prahuhu yogam tam vidhi pandava nahyas sannyasta sankalpaha yogi bhavati kashchana. So in the Vedic tradition, the goal of life, the goal of human life is moksha. And it is explicitly stated that the former 3 goals, aligning yourself to the laws, security and wealth and pleasures of life, they're relatively important, but they're only a means. They subserve moksha. In other words, they're necessary to kind of keep you, right, engaged, to give you variety in life, to give you some entertainment. And with that entertainment, you can walk in and, you can be emotionally content pursuing this knowledge. And Krishna then says, what's the point of moksha? What does moksha do for you? Well, as we said in Kena Upanishad, everyone is born knowing who you are relatively well. You think relatively well. I am. But this I am is not entirely clear what I am. That's why the search is there. Otherwise, we would not be searching. And therefore, the search, the culmination of that search leads to total clarity of what I am is. And that's when the search stops, because you understand the whole world. There is nothing apart from you here. Therefore, what is there to search? What are you searching? It's like the wood, it's like the table searching for the wood. It's already there. So Krishna says, there's 2 ways to understand your I am is much bigger than who you think you are, which is your mind and your body. The first method is by becoming a sannyasa. In this case, a ordinary sannyasa, and that is to give up all of your roles and to contemplate on Atma. So this is option 1 that you have. Anyone thinking about this? And then option 2 is to become a karma yogi. Karma yogi is where you play your roles in life and you experience challenges and you do your duties aligned to ethical values. But then you say, this is exactly what an ordinary person does. They do their duties, they're aligned to values, right? They're doing what has to be done. So what's the difference between an ordinary karmi, an action taker, and a karma yogi? When you put this word yogi in front, that means you convert your karma, your action, into yoga. Yoga means a reminder that every action, every karma you do is a means to something higher, which is moksha. That means every action is there to help me sharpen up my mind, to undo my distortions, to help me see there's more than I thought there is, to help me convert my assumptions and get the essence of what I need to know, and thereby purifying your mind little by little. Every experience, every challenge becomes a means of what we say antahkarana shuddhi. The inner instrument gets purified through every argument, through every relationship, through marriage, through anything that you do at work with colleagues. For example, going to work now is not such a painful experience, because before I just have to work, do what I have to do my duty, get a paycheck, go home. Done. But a karma yogi, how does a karma yogi go to work? Well, karma yogi catches the bus like anyone else, goes to work, does what is to be done, and uses work to improve one's communication skills. Uses work, employees, acquaintances to relate to manifestations of Ishvara. To be reminded that all of my employees and my employers and my friends here are all within this one order of Ishvara. Because it's easy to have friendliness towards those who you admire. But when it comes towards those who are in your workplace, where there is a little bit of tension, then the knowledge tends to run away. So the karma yogi brings that knowledge back to the best of one's ability and tries to see the environment, the workplace, in the light of the knowledge. Because you cannot sort of say, I'm only going to experience, I'm going to enjoy this teaching in class or in quiet parks or wherever you go. The real challenge is, can you stay grounded in challenging environments? So there's a huge advantage to workplace and to places that will kind of test you. Therefore, you have to, right, bring this knowledge deliberately. As we said, yogi is the one who deliberately keeps bringing and aligning oneself back to the knowledge. It is work. And the good news is, because it's done so often, it eventually becomes a habit. You don't even think about it. But there is an initial effort. What's the difference between a karmi, an ordinary doer of actions, and a karma yogi?
The ultimate goal is different. The karma yogi is doing whatever he's doing in order to get closer to moksha and to see that the results he receives are not due to his actions but coming from Ishvara.
This is beautiful, what Shan said. In other words, a karma yogi not only understands that I am giving my actions to the altar of God. This is called, or having an Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. We call this Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. In other words, my buddhi, my intellect, understands that I'm not just giving to my boss, I'm not just giving to my husband, my wife, my children. They're all manifestations of Ishvara. I'm not just giving to my employees, employer. They're manifestations of Ishvara. So I use them to be reminded that I'm giving all of my results ultimately to the altar of God. Because all that here is God. So the more we think I'm kind of giving to my, to my family, that's fine. But the cost of that is I'm reinforcing that sense of separation, my family, my units, my life. So the intellect has to start looking wider and wider and wider. There's no magic pill. It is practice. And when the results come back, they're not just coming back from my employer, from my boss, from my manager. We say it is coming from the altar of Ishvara. The vast network is returning to me what's in front of me. This is called Ishvara Prasada Buddhi. In other words, I understand that every return on my investment is a blessing coming from the governor of the universe, whose laws are infallible and never fail and have been running for millennia, and that one, in reality, is the only one I can have trust in. Because even your parents, when we were born, we had no choice but to trust, because they were our gods. And then, as we grow up, we see some inconsistencies, and we see, I cannot quite trust them. And we lose trust in God, because they were our God. And now, what the karma yogi has to do is repair one's trust with God. How so? By understanding there is only one infallible order, only one infallible being, which is Ishvara. Everyone else is subject to falling, is subject to mistakes, is subject to errors, is subject to confusion. Ishvara alone, the governor, the sustainer of the universe alone, is the one who never makes any mistakes. And this result that is coming back to me, whether it is a pleasant, one of those four options, it is coming from none other than this infallible order. You may not like it, and you may create a story and say, this is not necessary, I don't need this, I'm a good person. They're drug dealers and they're getting all of the beach houses. And I'm just a hard-working spiritual type, and I'm getting hardly anything. But what you don't know is the compensation law has the right delivery for everyone. You just have to wait. You won't know what's going to happen to them in the next life or in this life. You don't know. So in this way, the only being that you can have trust in is the one that's beating your heart right now. Is your friend doing that? Are you doing that? Hold on. Let me just beat my heart. In other words, you even have less trust in yourself than Ishvara. Who has trust in themselves to keep beating their heart for the next 24 hours? And yet, I have trust in one being who would definitely beat my heart for the next 24 hours, Ishvara, who has been beating it for years now. You have no choice but to trust. So developing trust in Ishvara is understanding these laws never fail, and because of these laws, your life is working. And what else is this karma yogi willing to do? As we said, remove ignorance. And what is ignorance? Ignorance is when you take superimposition to be real. That means we're all given a particular body-mind in this universe, and you take this body-mind to be who you are. This is everyone's condition. Everyone gets born like this. In other words, superimposition is when I take I to be what it's not. And then I start to live in a consistent manner according to that deep-rooted belief. And the reason why it is so hard to get rid of that is because we come with so much baggage. From day one, you're born, and people are saying, are you hungry? I am hungry. Are you sore? I am sore. Are you happy? I am happy. And that's just this life. Never mind many, many, many lifetimes of this deep-rooted notion that I am this mind, I am this body. It is so deep, it is so real that one is willing to fight and dismiss other schools which are just trying to help you see that you're much bigger than your body-mind. There was once a line in The Matrix, right, where Morpheus said, these people are willing to fight for the system they've created. And so I thought about that line, and that is true. One's willing to fight to preserve their sense of smallness. No, I am this small individual. I want to create separation between me and you. I want some competition. It's so deeply rooted that it becomes a challenge to kind of shake up a little bit. So a yogi engages in karma yogi to shake up this deep-rooted notion of being the body. And we said, why is this notion there? The notion is simply because you know that you are, which is why you're seeking, but you don't know who you are exactly, which is why you're seeking. And until you know who you are, the seeking will continue. When you totally know who you are, all doubts end. They just end completely. Just like when the snake disappears, at once, immediately, you see the rope. There's no question of half rope, is it a snake? It's immediate. In other words, moksha is not something that kind of happens a little by little, but when knowledge takes place, it is immediate and complete. Now the next verse Now Arjuna says in the next verse, it seems impossible to come out of bad habits, because he knows that the mind is so entrenched in its habits of thinking like a non-yogi that Arjuna wants to know, is there a way to come out of my habits, my deep-rooted habits? So let's go into verse 5. Uddhared atmanatmanam natmanam avasadayet atmaiva hyatmano bandhuhu atmaiva ripuratmanaha. So this individual feeling small, feeling isolated, feeling sometimes discouraged that the journey is so hard, they ask themselves, I've been working and working and working for years, but how do I come out of this kind of insistent need to think in the old ways, right? It's just kind of very entrenched. And verse 5 then says, lift yourself by yourself. Who's going to lift you up? Who's going to lift you up? Think about this now. No matter where you are in life right now, what your position is, who is going to lift you up? Your wife? Your husband? Your children, by getting a good education, becoming whatever, pilot, doctor, astronauts maybe? Is that going to lift you up? What about your son becoming a president? Is that going to lift you up? Maybe. In other words, no matter what position you're in, ultimately, you are here to lift yourself up. That's why you were born. It was never about others lifting you up. It was never about government lifting up the society, the economy, or your house being renovated, or your garden being pruned up to lift you up, or vacuuming the house to kind of lift up your mood, even though this is okay sometimes. But ultimately, only you alone can lift yourself up. This is a huge statement, and it is the heart of the Bhagavad Gita. It means that you alone are given all of the tools, all of the resources to come out from where you are right now. And to be born a human being, you're given the privilege to lift yourself up. This is a fact. And the only one who's going to not lift me up is myself. In other words, the verse says, what makes you an enemy or a best friend? You make yourself a best friend and your worst enemy. And what does it mean to say when you make yourself an enemy? What does that mean? What does that involve? It involves, if you're interested in making yourself an enemy, anyone interested? Okay, I'll give you a formula to make yourself into an enemy. All you do is you skip what is to be done on your mind. You skip your mind and you go and pursue removing atyasa. Go pursue removing ignorance, sitting down, listening to knowledge, but leave your mind alone. Leave all of the pressures alone. Do not undo your distortions. Leave them alone. Just think it's all an illusion. I don't need to touch it. It's all just the mind anyway. It's all just the body. I'm beyond it all. Do this and you will become your worst enemy. Ishvara has made it such that you cannot skip the individual. The irony is the individual needs to be attended to understand I am bigger, much bigger than this individual. Limiting self-talk. How else do we make ourselves an enemy? Easy. Just engage in saying things like, I was never meant to attain moksha. I was never meant to succeed in this life. I am not meant to make it in this life. My family is bothering me. It's too much demands. I'm very busy. I've got too many responsibilities. Super easy. One single statement can take the most sophisticated instrument capable of sending man to the moon or to NASA or to the space station. That instrument is now used to help you to fail. Guaranteed it will. If it's so smart and can do so many sophisticated things, it can definitely take the individual into a brink of no return. Therefore, it is a great responsibility to be given a human mind. That is a privilege that a human has. No matter what condition you're in, you have a duty to lift yourself by yourself. When? Starting today, from now on. In fact, it was always the case. There's no excuse. As long as there's a breath available, you still have a mind. You can think. You have a body. Misaligning oneself to the laws, to dharma, not doing the right thing. That's another way to turn yourself into an enemy. Just say, this dharma I don't need. I don't need to follow the laws. It is made in such a way, there is no way around it. You literally have no choice but to align yourself to the laws. It's like the fish swimming against the current. They will probably get up the stream against the current for how long? Considering the current is lasting 80 years to get to the end. They will get to a certain distance, but are they going to get to the end? Most likely not. And they're going to wear themselves out because they're not going with the current of the laws. I'm not going to get this. I don't get this. This is limiting self-talk. The question is, what specifically don't you get? I don't understand this. What specifically don't you understand? In other words, my life is not working out. What specifically is not working out? In other words, get specific. This is a solution to cure limiting self-talk, because limiting self-talk is usually making generalized statements, and it encompasses now things like my life and things. What things? My life. What specifically about life? Life consists of many things. What? Friends, food, the plate, the cups in your kitchen, is that kind of falling apart? The fridge, is that broken? So this means one has to get very, very specific. What specifically is that's not working for me right now? Because the mind goes to the path of least resistance. It just sort of throws it all in. It's not working. So that is how to make yourself an enemy. How do we make ourselves a friend? Trust in life, trusting in the infallible laws of Ishvara. How else? Live a dharmic life, 100%, and just do the right thing, what is to be done.
Trust in yourself.
Trust in yourself. Trust in yourself every day. Yeah, that you're capable, you have the ability.
Following your svadharma.
Following what is to be done in your personal your environment, following your in reference to the people that you're around. Taking responsibility that every moment you have a chance to literally turn your life around just by thinking differently about it.
See life as a learning system.
Everything is a learning?
Yeah, see life as a learning system.
Yes, so everyone is a learning, a teacher. Life itself is a learning to help you evolve. Don't engage into? Negative self-talk, yeah. Into negative self-talk, yeah. Negative situation. Yeah, so of course you have to know what is, where do you stand? Where is your place in this world? So, right, how much do I want to be? Suppose you're forced to be in a negative situation, right? So then that means you have to set some boundaries there. Self-compassion, in other words, understanding that you're here, for example. You could have been doing so many other things. You are a seeker of, or you're a finder of truth. Not a seeker, but a finder of truth. You're one who's interested in deepening the truth.
And accepting the results you're getting.
Accepting your?
Results, the fruit of your deeds.
Accepting the fruit of your results, the results of your fruit, or accepting your results. Yeah. That they're coming from the infallible order. Now, how do I make the best of this? It's a blessing from Ishvara. It's literally Ishvara communicating, talking to you. We have these programs how to hear Ishvara, and they've got these like programs. You just tune in, meditate, and hear the silent voice. The results are Ishvara talking to you. Think about that. When is Ishvara not talking to you? But we don't want that kind of Ishvara to talk to us. We want it different. We want to hear a gentle, soothing voice. But that's not how it works.
And even more than only the results, I guess. Ishvara is talking every moment.
Every moment. Even now, Ishvara is talking. Look at this. Very loud. See, so in other words, what we're showing you is what is. See, the mind's just coming. This is it. This is all there is. This is life. There's nothing forwards or backwards. This is it. So Vedanta wants to help you, put you back into the absolute here, because this is all that you ever have. So if Ishvara is always talking to you by delivering you the results, then has Ishvara abandoned you? Never. But I felt like I was abandoned by Ishvara because I thought Ishvara is supposed to talk to me in a different way, so I abandoned myself. But the reality is, Ishvara has never been away from you. Even those moments when you thought, I forgot that there is Ishvara, that the cause of the universe has just abandoned me, you forgot that because Ishvara made it possible. By taking away your memory, by taking away your attention for a moment. Oh, now I remembered. That too happened within Ishvara's order. So when are you outside this intelligence? And even when you think you're outside this intelligence, you can only think that because intelligence is making it possible to think that. So this is what it means to understand all that is here is Ishvara. It is sustaining me as a person. It is sustaining this world. It is sustaining the very air that we're breathing. It is generating new possibilities. It's generating time. Right now, time itself is Ishvara. Space itself is Ishvara. You're swimming in Ishvara. You're drowned in intelligence, in God. But we want God to be something else. And therefore, where is God? Look at the weather. Where is God? I want rainbows. The whole journey is about seeing the whole thing was God all along. Whole Vedanta is about God, not about awareness. The moment it becomes about awareness, you go into 1,000 logical inconsistencies. You say, how is this awareness? I just see forms. The whole thing was about God. That's why I love Swami Dayananda's tradition. All that is here is Ishvara. All that is here is intelligence, manifesting as these forms, as your face, as your brain cell, as your hair, as your eyes, manifesting as the laws which are facilitating the interactions of different forms, working together constantly reshuffling itself to manifest as this moment right here. Not just here, but across the world, outside, in this entire universe. Entire universe right now is being sustained by this very intelligence. The very intelligence that is sustaining the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, is the exact same intelligence manifesting and sustaining your body right now.
Is there any free will left? I mean, if everything is intelligence, how can you say this is your free will?
Got it. So the question is, if everything is intelligence, so intelligence manifests as laws. And one of those laws is what's called power of choice. That means I can make a choice to do this or to do that. But whichever choice is made, then intelligence will deliver the corresponding results either way. So even free will is a manifestation of Ishvara. But it's a kind of manifestation that allows the instrument to make a choice. In this case, we have intelligence manifesting as this glass. Okay? The same intelligence. When you break down through analysis, as we will continue through Kena Upanishad, it is just concepts within concepts within concepts. And that very intelligence is manifesting as you right now. Just like the waves are manifesting within one ocean. And no wave is away from the ocean. They're all within one ocean. So there comes a time when the wave says, hey, my life is sustained by the ocean. My life has no reality apart from the ocean. My entire choice-making ability, whatever happens, is within the ocean. The ability to make a choice is also facilitated by the ocean.
That all this is revealed by consciousness.
And the whole thing is revealed by one reality, which we're yet to do in Kena Upanishad. Yeah, you're a little bit ahead, yeah.
Okay.
I don't want to mention consciousness now because it gets confusing. Yeah. Okay? So the whole thing is just reshuffling itself right now. But because we're so accustomed to seeing forms, you say, where? I'm totally uninspired. I just see a wall. I just see, moving trees. A yogi is not someone who just magically sees it all, sees the reality. A yogi took years to practice constantly, bringing this knowledge that despite seeing forms, there is more than the forms. Intelligence. Even now, intelligence. Manifesting as this world, as this weather, as the sun, as the moon, as planets, as the entire universe right now. So if all there is here is intelligence, then what do you want? If it's one reality, what can I want? And from whom? Who am I asking then? Who's going to receive what? If it's one intelligence, who's going to receive what? It's like the wave asking, I want another wave. Yeah, but the whole thing is water. What are you going to receive? You're already manifestation of Ishvara. What will I possibly receive? So this takes time and practice. It's not just something that just sort of comes. Until then, I want more, I want this, I want that. So how to make yourself a friend? Undoing distortions, bringing the knowledge in consistently, removing destructive patterns. I'm not going to tell you how, because if I tell you how, they may not be valid for you. You just Google this, how to destroy destructive patterns. There's your how. So this is not so much about the how, because if you know the why, there's a cost of not removing my destructive patterns. And what is the cost? Seeing more forms after forms after forms, while intellectualizing all there is here is awareness. That's the cost. So by understanding that the cost of thinking in old destructive ways, in old patterns of separation, you keep on seeing the same form after form after form. And the question is, do you want that? If yes, that's up to you. Again, you're given the possibility by this intelligence to live as you wish. But there is a cost. Until one moment the individual says, I want to bring much more than I've been seeing. I want to understand all that is here is God. And there is nowhere to go. Yeah, okay, so verse 6, it's a similar idea. Bandhuratmatmanastasya yenatmaivatmana jitaha anatmanastu shatrutve vartetatmaiva shatruvat. Okay, so verse 6 speaks about the person who wishes to remove ignorance. That means who wishes to have mastery to have mastery over the mind. That means to remove ignorance, I need to have a relative mastery over my mind. Now the question is, what is mastery of the mind? Is it control of the mind? Okay, if it was control of the mind, then what thought will come in the next 1 minute and 20 seconds from now? We don't know, right? In other words, we never had total control of the mind. You have relative control, but not total control. So this means that in chapter 13, we actually talk about what is mastery of the mind. And there is a verse, chapter 13, verse 8, it says, Amanitvam adambitvam. All of these values are in chapter 13. And I want to go through a few of them. And the first one is amanitvam. So what is amanitvam? So these are all values for mastering the mind. Well, amanitvam is lack of conceit. So lack of conceit means lack of excess pride. So what happens sometimes is there is this sense of self-importance. For example, someone has a certain position and they carry themselves high up, like I am a great intellectual, I am a great kind of a spiritual aspirant, I am a great, like whatever, something at work. And what this does, it makes others feel uncomfortable, right, around you, or you feel uncomfortable around them. So what amanitvam is absence of having this sense of conceit, this sense of, I am important and I am elevated and I am above, right? I'm above you. So the person kind of, right, carries themselves in this artificial bubble that they are elevated in reference to someone else. And what this does is it kind of keeps you unapproachable. And yet you need people, right, to help you evolve. So some of the things that we can do to reduce this need for, having this excess pride. For example, it can even be spiritual pride. Sometimes a person will say, oh, these are all lost souls. Look at that, just materialists, buying this, buying that, all lost souls. This is spiritual pride. When all that is here is Ishvara, where's the question of spirituality and materialism? Think about this. These are categories we create to make ourselves feel comfortable. If you think about how many people have been involved in your life to bring you here in this moment, how many? How many teachers have you crossed that have been stepping stones to put you to this moment in life? How many? A lot. Whether on YouTube, whether books, all of those authors that you will never meet, whose quotes you picked and thought they were amazing, they became part of your identity. All of the research papers, all of the great investment of time, energy, and effort of the zipper, the microwave, Velcro, all of these inventions were done by people you will never meet. ABS on your car that makes you stop safely. This was an invention, I think, from BMW or Volvo, one of them. Who is that man? I don't know. Who's the pilot that got you here if you traveled? Who built that road that didn't have any potholes to get here? Have you met those people? No. Who exactly cooked our food? We don't know. Who exactly takes our trash out, put it in the bin? Where does that go? Who are those people working there to keep our streets clean? How many people do you need to succeed in life? It is astronomical. Where's the question of elevating myself as some special being? No question at all. Also, nobody behaves as we want. In other words, we have this expectation that people are supposed to be like this towards me. He's supposed to be like this towards me. She's supposed to be like this towards me. But nobody acts as you want it. This is a reality. So the more I have this sort of idea that people are supposed to treat me with respect, they're supposed to look up to me, I'm an old, wise person, I'm a young teacher, whatever, right? the more one crosses certain resistance, and Ishvara gives you feedback, you end up lonely. It's like, hey, what's going on? So the question is, do I want to be lonely or do I want to have company who can help me? Another common thing to say is, I don't need you. I don't need you. I don't need this. But actually, you do need you. You do need, I need you. That's the reality. You need teachers. We need teachers. Recognize other people's hardships. It's simple as that. Everyone has got hardships. Therefore, there is no need to put oneself above or even below. It's just unnecessary. Okay? And then we have adambhitvam. So this is lack of pretense. Pretense is facade. So in other words, see, we all carry this facade sometimes, right, to kind of show ourselves as someone that's, special, or, you need to kind of sometimes practically stand up and show a certain face to the world, which is fine. This is practical. But where it can become a issue is it becomes a habitual thing. So, right, one's carrying the inauthentic self in front of another person. And what happens is we're unable to connect like that. So if I carried myself constantly as, some teacher, I would probably not connect with any of you. So this means the person has to reduce this need to appear like a certain person in front of the world. And why? Because it is in your interest. That's how you connect with other people. And how do we do this? We do this by showing our vulnerabilities. The more we try to sort of like, right, I'm this, I'm that, the more people are like, great. But what we really connect with is sharing our stories, sharing our downfalls. That's what really connects people together. Ahimsa is non-violence. And non-violence or non-hurt is in reference to three things. And the former two are not really that important because the first one is going to modify the latter two, which is thoughts. If you have the right thoughts, that means thoughts that are counting the well-being of both parties, then naturally your actions will follow and your speech is going to follow that thought system. So, for example, right, you're going to somebody's event and they, kind of stumble or they need some help, and then you're sensitive enough to reach out and help. Non-injury. That means you're helping another individual. But if you're put in a situation where you can do something and it is in your power to do something, but you choose not to, and then the mind brings a story why I shouldn't, then there is a compensation system to that, and it will let you know. And then you can work through that and see why didn't you act, and was it maybe fear of something. But either way, you will get a feedback, and this is the compensation system that's always working. Okay? Finding faults in others. They're not good enough, they're like this, they're like that. This is actually himsa. Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.